Hey everyone, Casey Scanlon here, bringing you a Lake of the Ozarks fishing report. It's the end of June. We're getting close to July. It's going to be July 4th weekend coming up. So it's getting hot out here. The fish are biting. We've had very little current, and the water level is up to normal pool finally. So we've had low water all spring. Last couple weeks, the lake is filled up. Still not a lot of current generation. Lake's pretty stagnant. When they do run some current, the fish really tend to bite. It positions the fish on cover, whatever it is you're fishing, whether it's points or brush piles or boat docks. It just kind of positions the fish better, gets them active, gets them biting, and the days that they've ran some current have been really good. So let's hope we get some rain, get this warm weather. They're definitely going to have to run a little bit of it. So usually it's been in the evenings. The evening bite has been really, really strong. The weights in some of these tournaments have been pretty good. We've got a lot of evening tournaments here on the lake, whether you want to fish Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We've got a tournament every night of the week almost. So those weights are typically pretty good. Guys been catching them all summer, but the bite's different than the last few years, in my opinion. We've had a lot less current. The fish are more suspended, and with this higher water level that we've had recently, the fish are kind of more spread out. So fishing's a little strange, I would call it, but we're using a lot of the same baits that we normally use. We're catching a lot of numbers of fish. The size of the fish has been down a little bit. The fish have been spread out, like I said. So you got to fish for them a little bit more, not as grouped up. But just some of your typical summertime stuff is starting to work right now. So mainstay for me is always the jig. Okay, this is the Trophy Bass Company 5/8 ounce jig. You got a T-craw trailer on there, big profile. Got summer craw pattern on here. A lot of bluegill in the lake right now that are up shallow, up high in the water column. And a lot of these bass are around them, and I think they're feeding on them quite a bit. We've had some bluegill spawns in the last month or so. I'm not sure if they're still doing that, but I'm sure a few still are, because I've seen them hovering around up shallow, and lots of them. And seeing a lot of smaller bluegills up there as well, which is probably, some bluegill fry and some that have hatched earlier this spring. So still a good shallow bite. I saw some fish wolf packing up there for the shallow bite, focus on the boat docks. Shaky head worms are good. 10-inch worms are good. The jig is always good. This 5/8 jig is one that I throw just pretty much everywhere, whether it's a brush pile, a boat dock, a lay down on the bank, shallow cover, deep cover. It's something that I can catch them both on the bottom, suspended. It's just a really good tool to have in your arsenal to fish a variety of cover. But up shallow, your Texas rig creature baits like the baby brush buster, your 10 and 12-inch worms, 1/2 ounce jig, 3/8 ounce jig, top water. Top water's been really good for me the last couple months. Like I said, the fish are spread out, the fish are suspended. So the top water allows me to cover a little bit of water. It allows me to target some of those more aggressive fish. And, you can call them from a good distance a lot of days. We got some really clear water throughout most of the lake. So the fish can see a good ways. They'll travel a long ways to eat a bait. So top water is a good option when they've got good visibility. This spook type bait, always a good one. Got it on 6 gill, 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. You want a reel like this that you can bomb it out there. These 6 gills will absolutely cast further than any other reel that I've thrown. And that really helps when these fish are schooling. We've got a lot of schooling activity, things like that. So, the top water is a big player, whether you're fishing off the bank or whether you're just covering some water up shallow. I would recommend this for the open water, maybe a Pop R as well. The Pop R is gonna work really good up shallow. And then, my favorite for just covering some water, you got a lot of bluegills up high. We've got a lot of cover in the water now. So I'm gonna pick up the Worldwide Buzzer from Tackle HD, cover a ton of water, make a lot of commotion. I'm gonna make it, that blade hit the head when it's rotating and make a lot of noise. It's gonna make a clanking sound and call those fish from a long ways. So variety of top waters are working. Shallow bite is strong. Texas rigs, jigs, even wacky rig, it produces really good right now. The fish are up high in the water column. You can throw that wacky rig around deeper docks, really any docks on the lake, and those fish are just suspended. Especially days they're not rolling current. A lot of the fish are suspended around the docks. Over the top of brush, crossbars, cables, things like that. They want to get around something. So if there's some cover around the dock, they're going to suspend around it. For those fish, we're using really light shaky heads. We're using Ned rigs. These are some of the fish we're targeting on my guide trips. Not always the biggest fish in the lake, but fun to catch. On some days we catch a lot of quality. We always catch a lot of numbers. So to get some bites, we're throwing this finesse worm from Tackle HD. This little bait, throw it on like an 1/8 ounce or 1/16 ounce really shaky head. I think we've been throwing a 1/16 on most of our trips, letting it glide down there super slow. Those fish will intercept it on the fall. You can throw that on a drop shot. We've been Ned rigging, the Tackle HD sticks worm. And we've been just basically, the sticks worm is just a stick worm. We've been throwing that on a wacky rig for suspended fish around shallow cover. We've been throwing it on a wacky rig for suspended fish around these docks, usually putting a nail weight in it, throwing the Hayabusa wacky hook, the special wacky hook. It has a little wire keeper guard on there, 2/0 hook, great hook for that technique. Just letting it flutter down there. Basically do nothing with it. Throw it around the object or cover that you think the fish are around. The Garmin live scope is awesome because it's telling me where the fish are at, and I can make that cast and I can watch my bait go past those fish and see how they react. So depending on how they react, we'll switch the baits up. But day in and day out lately, the traditional stuff, the more finessey stuff has been working better. The Ned rigs, the shaky heads, your Texas rig plastics, a jig, your slower presentations seem to be working. I've been lightening up my weights a lot. Usually I'll throw, pretty heavy stuff, let it get down to the bottom, get a reaction strike from some of those fish. And that is working in some instances. Like I said, with the Garmin live scope, you can really see them, how they react and how they set up. So on certain days, that faster falling bait will work, but as high up as they've been, with the lack of current that we've had, it seems like the slower falling baits, the lighter weight has been a little bit more productive. So fish are starting to get in the brush. This lake has a ton of brush on it, or in it rather. All the homeowners put it out there, all the fishermen put it out there. A lot of natural shoreline cover, and the worm is just the way to go. So this is the Tackle HD's 12-inch worm right here. This is a good one. Catches a lot of big fish. We're fishing a lot at night this time of year. This is a pretty big worm. So I'm putting a 1/2 ounce to a minimum of like a 3/8 ounce. Now you can fish it. I'll fish this worm, maybe with a 5/16 or something if I'm fishing extremely shallow. But, most of the time we're fishing this in brush piles that are, 8 to 25 foot deep. And, I want something that is going to get in that pile fast. So usually like a 1/2 ounce weight on that. Slip sinker, Bass Pro Shops tungsten, letting it slide up and down the line. 20-pound Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon line. I'm using the same rod as I am with the jig. This is a 7'6" heavy action Siren from 6 Gill. Super light rod. It's tough, it's sensitive. Been using them for several years. You can't go wrong with any of the 6 Gill rods or reels. 8-to-1 gear ratio. Using that on my soft plastics as well. I want to take up a lot of line when I'm setting the hook. A lot of times when I set the hook on those fish, I got this big rod. I'm moving them a long ways. Especially if it's a smaller fish, I'm going to move that fish a pretty good distance. So it's nice to have that fast reel so you can, keep in contact with that fish, keep the line tight, keep your rod bowed, and get them in the boat. So finesse stuff, deep, shallow, mid-range, it's all kind of working. The brush bite is, around boat docks. It's on flats. It's basically, bluff ends, bluffs, wherever that brush is and the bait is, that's where the bass are gonna be. They're gonna move. There's so much brush in the lake. I feel like they move from pile to pile to pile to pile, just depending on where that bait's at. So locate the bait, look for the fish on your electronics, and you're gonna catch some fish. Can't go wrong with the worm. Soft plastics. Basically, I'm just gonna throw that worm and probably a 1/2 ounce or 5/8 ounce jig in most of those piles, especially to start with. And if I don't get bit, I'm gonna move along. There's plenty of brush to fish in the lake. So whatever it is that you wanna do out here at the lake, it is honestly all kind of working right now. Lot to do out here, a lot of cover in the water, and the fish are biting. Numbers of fish have been really good. We've even been doing a lot of crappie fishing lately. I had some crappie trips last week. We were throwing 1/16 ounce jig heads and the Tackle HD baby shad in monkey milk. It's this color right here in the middle. And basically, I took out this kit right here from Tackle HD. I took one of these white jig heads, 1/16 ounce heads out of the bottom there, threaded on one of the baby shads, and we went out and had a great time. I did 2 different guide trips last week. We caught a ton of crappies. They were both 4-hour trips. We had, over 20, 30 keepers in each one, and we were just basically shooting boat docks. So boat traffic was rough, made it hard to get up underneath the dock. We went fishing in the middle of the day, which is really not ideal for crappie fishing, and they still bit. So the fish were anywhere from 4 feet deep, really more like 6 to 10 foot, all the way down to 25, 30 foot underneath some of these boat docks. We were keying in on main lake docks with a lot of shade. Brush piles, cables, things like that were even better. You want to have some kind of structure for them to hold on. But crappie fishing was good. We even fished a few deep brush piles, floated over the top of them with the baby shad, and caught a few that way as well. So whatever you want to do out here, you can do it right now. The fish are biting. You just got to look for them. Look for the bait, and you'll find them. Plenty of fish in the lake, and the bite's been good. So tie on some soft plastics, couple jigs, and go have some fun out there. Enjoy the holiday weekend, and we'll get a report to you in a couple weeks. Good luck out there.